Well, good morning to each and every single one of you as you join me from right around the country for today's conversation around cooperating to succeed. My name is Susan Hayes Culleton, and I am delighted to be here with you to MC this great conference where we're going to have a really important discussion around resilience, renewal, social enterprise, and bringing everybody together so that we can create better outcomes for all. Just to set the scene, first and foremost, the non-profit sector in Ireland, in its broadest sense, according to the most recent state data, is that it employs an estimated 100,000 people, has an income of over 6 billion, and within this social enterprise, the sector itself employs between 25,000 and 33,000 people in over 1,400 social enterprises, some of whom you'll hear from today, and that generates total income of 1.4 billion. So many would agree that this is a really important part of our economy, as well as our society, in sometimes differing but very proportional measure. So first of all, I am going to take you through a couple of logistics around what's going to happen today. Right, so number one, today's conference is going to run from 11 a.m. this morning, Irish time. The reason I'm saying Irish time is because we are going to have the voice of Randy Salzberg from the US is going to be joining us, and there may well be people from around the world taking part in our conversation today. And then the second thing I want to tell you is the hashtag. I've already been tweeting, and I hope that you join in the conversation on Twitter as well. And the hashtag is resilience renewal. So hashtag resilience renewal. That's where the conversation will be happening on social media. I'm going to be keeping an eye on Twitter, so please do interact and join in the conversation there. Now, speaking of ways that you can interact, also the Q&A panel is open. Okay, so if you look down there at the bottom of your screen right now, you will see that there's a couple of options there. Specifically, the one that we invite you to engage on is the Q&A panel. And I have directly got a line to that. So as soon as anything comes in there from the Q&A panel, I'll be able to see it. And as we go through the various different conversations with the guest speakers, I'll be able to feed your questions through. And I will do as much as I can in the time that we have, because we have a super packed agenda for you this morning. So just wanted to make that point as well. Okay, so before I'm going to hand you over to the CEO of West Limerick Resources, to Cher Reardon, I just want to give you a couple of thoughts that I have on the theme itself of resilience and renewal. Because you see, if there was ever a year or an 18-month period where we've shown that, it has been since March 2020. And indeed, we can go before that as well. And during that period of time, of course, we have had to renew our sense of what community means, because it has taken on a whole new meaning and a whole new depth and scope of that meaning over that period of time. But also as individuals, we've also had to show immense resilience. And that has had to be, we've had to show iron discipline when many of us may not have necessarily wanted to show it. And we've had to show it over a prolonged period of time. And also we've had to do it with various different highs and lows along the last period of time too. So as individuals, we've shown a huge amount of resilience. But when you put the two together, when you put renewal and resilience, when you put the two together, then a whole other series of words appear, like adaptability, like new opportunities, like various different perspectives, like refreshment, and so many others as well. And during the conversation over the next 2 hours, as I say, that I really hope that you interact with through the hashtag and through the Q&A function on Zoom here today, you will see a variety of people who are immensely passionate about what they do. They have shown huge renewal. They have shown a wide range of ways that they've worked together to cooperate to succeed. And you're going to see all of those ways that we can bring new ideas and new perspectives together to deliver better outcomes for all. And one last thing before I hand you over to Shay now, I just want to take you through one specific technique that I use a lot when I'm trying to think of how do we renew? How do we think differently? How do we gain a different perspective? And that is that I use the scamper technique. And the scamper technique is when you look at something, right? Well, it might be an idea, might be a resource, might be an event, might be a podcast, might be an initiative, might be a brand, could be anything. And then the scamper technique invites you then to think about, could I substitute that with anything else? Could I combine it with another resource that I have to deliver another outcome? Could I adapt what I'm doing with it? Could I modify it or magnify it or minify it? Can I use it in a different way? And also, should I eliminate it? Should this be replaced by something else? Or what if I reverse the model entirely? So check that out. The scamper technique is a great way to start the discussion in a group brainstorm or even on your own when you are pursuing an idea where you need to think differently. So on that note, I'm going to hand you right on over now to Shea Reardon. He is the CEO of West Limerick Resources, to officially open up our conversation today.
Thanks a million, Susan. Really delighted to be here this morning, and we've made it in one piece. So delighted to welcome everybody for what I think is going to be a really interesting and exciting morning. I suppose just to flag that this initiative has been supported under the LEADER programme, which is co-funded by the Irish government and the EU, and is funded under a little known, I suppose, strand of funding that we use called cooperation, which brings the unlikely partners of Southwest Mayo, South Tipperary and ourselves in West Limerick together to bring you this unique initiative. We have seen a huge degree of interest, and I suppose that word resilience has been much bandied about over the last 12 or 18 months with everything that has happened. But really this morning is about looking forward, and for us as local development companies, we are keen to support our social enterprises in our local communities, providing the much needed supports and services that our communities right across our geographies need. We have some really interesting speakers this morning, and looking forward to hearing their experiences and some more techniques like Susan's scamper technique as referenced there earlier. So I'll be closing later on, but invite you to enjoy and participate in the event to get the most out of it. And we look forward to getting your reactions afterwards also. So thanks a million, and hand you back.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Shea, and we will later on hear from you again towards the latter end of our conversation today. So thank you very much indeed for that opening. So now I'm going to hand you over to Katie Murray, and Katie Murray is the Rural Development Officer at West Limerick Resources, and she is going to take us through the first part of our conversation, introducing you to the Cooperate to Succeed programme.
Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to see so many in attendance today. So I am Katie Murray, and I work on the LEADER team here in West Limerick Resources. So West Limerick Resources, through our LEADER and SICAP teams primarily, we have been supporting the development and sustainability of social enterprises in the West Limerick area for many years. So direct mentoring and group training supports have been rolled out, as well as grant aid and other supports to accessing funding. So in 2019, a specific study on social enterprise potential in West Limerick was commissioned to establish some baseline data on the issues impacting the social enterprise sector in the area, and to identify supports needed to help sustain existing enterprises. So together with the report results and ongoing work and consultation, it was recognised a more bespoke and more innovative training is required in order to support the sector to fully achieve its potential. The need to form networks and share learning became more apparent, and the opportunity for cooperation was explored between Southwest Mayo Development and South Tipperary Development Company. So initial discussions between the three companies highlighted our shared desire to provide a dedicated, intensive, bespoke support training programme for our social enterprises. So the LEADER-funded cooperation model meant the three agencies could develop networking opportunities and sharing of best practice. It was agreed the LEADER-funded cooperation approach would provide a greater opportunity for social enterprises across the three geographic areas to develop thematic synergies and foster the continued collaboration and development, resulting in our programme today, Cooperating to Succeed. So the overall objective of Cooperating to Succeed is to strengthen the sustainability and social impact of new and existing social enterprises. The training programme is being delivered by Cramden Tech Limited, Caroline Egan being the lead trainer. Caroline, of course, is well known in the social enterprise industry, and we're delighted to have her on board. So she's familiar with many of our enterprises, having worked with them over many years, and we would like to thank her for putting today's event together and for all her hard work on getting the programme up and running. So Cooperating to Succeed will provide up to 10 social enterprises in each of the three partner areas to receive one-to-one training support over a period of 12 months. Each enterprise will develop their own training programme, which can be updated and adjusted as needs arise or change over the 12-month period. Obviously, when we had planned the training programme, we had not foreseen the impact of COVID-19. However, we have been able to adapt the programme to fit with government guidelines and restrictions, and the timing and the method of training delivered will be to suit the individual enterprises. So the programme will involve a collective training plan, which will be delivered jointly across the 3 areas, fostering the networking and collaboration of social enterprises in the 3 areas. The training programme will be open to all social enterprises operating in West Limerick, South Tipperary and County Mayo. The final element of the programme will involve shared learning events, such as today, where we can showcase social enterprises in each of the 3 areas, further promoting the social enterprise sector and continued collaboration. It is hoped our programme Cooperation to Succeed will highlight the social, societal, economic and environmental impacts of our social enterprises, and it is only the beginning of our new approach to supporting the industry into the future. So I suppose now I want to introduce you to the social enterprises that are currently participating in our programme. So in West Limerick, we have West Limerick 102 FM, a community radio station with staff and up to 30 volunteers operating 7 days a week. Clonshire Equestrian Centre, which provides riding lessons, equestrian training and equine assisted learning located just outside of Adair. Roots Community Shop and Cafe in the village of Kilmeady, which, believe it or not, opened their doors for the very first time during the COVID pandemic. Knockadary Clownca Resource Centre, a beautiful community facility located in the village of Knockadary, with a members bar and large hall often used for plays, concerts and classes. Then we have Glorach, a beautiful community theatre in Abbeyfield, loved for its diverse range of performances in the theatre and musical and arts. Drumculliher Respite Centre, based in the small town of Drumculliher, providing affordable respite care to the elderly. Then we have Local Link Limerick Clare, which provides rural transport to communities within Limerick and Clare. West Limerick Sports Complex, providing sports, swimming and recreational facilities and services in the Newcastle West area. And then finally, we have St. Ita's Voluntary Housing Association and Daycare Centre, based in Abbeyfield, providing housing for independent living, as well as day services and recreation. So I'm going to pass you over now to our partner in Mayo, Narita.
Hello, I'm Narita Clesham, and I'm very happy to be involved in this programme with West Limerick and with South Tipperary. The 10 enterprises in Mayo are spread across the county. The first one we have is the Achill Experience Aquarium and Visitor Centre, and that's addressing the need for all-weather visitor attractions in Achill that serves in the arts, cultural facilities and preserves education and supports the local community also in giving local employment to the whole year round. We have Ball Community Resource Centre. It's a community centre that addresses local needs and services through childcare, community hall that has meeting space, houses 300 people. Most recently has a community kitchen and hub, and is now looking at redesigning their IT. We've Ballintubber Abbey. Most of you probably have heard of Ballintubber Abbey. It's an abbey over 800 years old. It's a national monument of major historical and cultural significance, and in normal times would have over 35,000 visitors a year. We have a Ballina Costume Company in Ballina, County Mayo, and this company make and hire out costumes for festivals, plays, schools, all types of events. They were challenged during COVID and started to make PPE for frontline workers. They also work in a series of classes as well. We have Mayo Abbey Parish, Claremorris, County Mayo, and it's a voluntary organisation addressing local needs, starting with childcare and enhancement, has now a training centre, horticultural centre and cookery school. We have Michael Davitt Centre, Michael Davitt Museum in Strayed, Foxford, and that's dedicated to the legacy of Michael Davitt, activist and global reformer. The museum houses the artifacts and has international links and networks. Clore ICH Clare Morris, which is an approved voluntary housing association set up in 2000, and it provides and manages housing and associated amenities to people in deprived circumstances. They also manage energy retrofitting upgrades for SEI and have partners in EU projects. Edible Landscape Project in Westport was set up to encourage people to come together to plant more trees, to grow more food, and to begin to make simple changes in what and how they eat and to improve health. Lennon Hall Art Centre in Castlebar provides art services for the community, supporting local artists, providing opportunities for all the community to participate in art, be it theatre, film, music and visual arts. We have Kilmovee Community Housing Centre in a rural community in East Mayo. It's a CSP, a Registered Voluntary Housing Association, providing services to the local community, which include meeting spaces, laundry service, delivery of meals, AstroTurf pitch, broadband hub and recycling centre. So I'll hand you over now to, that's the 10 from Mayo, I'll hand you over to Sarah in South Tip.
Thanks very much, Narita. And here in South Tip, we're delighted to be part of this Cooperating to Succeed project. And before I go into our Tipperary 10, I want to just pay tribute to Katie Murray, who has been the power and the energy behind getting this project up and running. Lots of administration, lots of paperwork, lots of coordination. And just as a team member, Narita and I want to just say thanks, Katie. And on behalf of all the enterprises involved, this wouldn't be happening without Katie. So to move on to a quick tour of Tipperary and our 10 enterprises. If we're talking about tourism, that's core to the work of Burncourt Community Council, who have recently purchased and restored a beautiful old hunting lodge in Glengarra Woods, which they're hoping to add to the other activities which they are involved with. We have the Clonmel Apple Fest, which celebrates heritage, food culture and ecology through the medium of art, craft and storytelling. And they also have a community tree planting scheme, which is very successful. Moving across the county, we have the Glenavarlow Fáilte Society, which is a community organisation dedicated to promoting tourism in their area around the Galtee Mountains. If you come to visit the Glen, you'll be close enough to Tipperary town, where we find our next two participants. The Tipperary Excel is a multidisciplinary arts and heritage centre with a cinema, a theatre, a gallery, a dance studio, museum, cafe, etc. For fitness and activity, the Cannon Hayes Sports Centre has provided the area with excellent facilities for a range of sports and exercise for nearly 40 years now, and they are looking at facing the post-COVID challenge. Property Marking is a very different organisation. They're based up in Killinall, and they offer a crime prevention programme which enables individuals and communities to mark their property with their air code. And they collaborate with An Garda Síochána, and the objective is to deter property theft and to assist the recovery of property. Jobs for Family Carers is another innovative social enterprise. They aim to provide a centralised resource to facilitate family carers to access suitable part-time work, which they can balance with their caring responsibilities. And they work with employers, recruitment agencies, and obviously with carers directly. Staying with the theme of caring, Millennium Family Resource Centre in Glengool offer Meals on Wheels, community laundry and daycare in a very isolated rural area in Tipperary. Our final two social enterprises are community resource hubs. Place for You in Clonmel provides offices, meeting rooms and other support facilities for community and voluntary groups with a focus on social inclusion. And last but not least, the Carrick on Shore Community Resource Centre is a multi-purpose centre. They work from social justice principles to develop services and provide facilities for the community with a particular emphasis on education and family support. So that's our 10. And I think having heard all 30 from all of us, you can see that there's lots of synergies there. There's lots of potential for cooperation, lots of potential for shared learning. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this project comes together over the next 12 months as we all learn and grow together. So I'll hand you back to Katie on that note.
Thanks a million, Sarah and Narita. So we now have a few images of our social enterprises from the 3 regions to show you now, and it'll be back then to our MC for today, Susan, to introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Operations to succeed.
Well, that was quite the tour that we had around 3 fantastic counties in Ireland, and it was really great the way we got from the Tipperary 10, and we went to South Mayo, into Mayo, and then we went to Limerick as well, just hearing about all of the various different activities that are happening. And what's going to happen now is that we are going to talk to 4 different social enterprises, specifically about the work that they're doing and how they have come through the last couple of months, and more importantly, how they're going to look to the future ahead. Just want to let you know, lots of conversation happening on Twitter. I've been keeping an eye on that. The hashtag is resilience renewal. And just a point, and one in which I really agree with, has come in through the Q&A as well, which is saying it's great to see such an innovative approach to the support of social enterprises, and that certainly is the case. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the 4 different social enterprises and the 5 people that you're going to meet today. So we have Mala Fahy from Lismore Heritage, we have Eileen O'Neill and Martha Kelleher from the South Meath Social Economy, we have Maria Gore from Rosslare Community and Sports Centre, and we also have Christy Burke, who is from the White Oaks Acorn Project. So first and foremost, can I go to each of you and could you tell us a little bit about the organisation that you're representing here today so that you can set the scene for us? Mala, can we go to you first? Can you tell us a little bit about Lismore Heritage?
Yeah, hi Susan, hello everybody. Yeah, we run a heritage centre in Lismore in County Waterford, but it's also a community hall where we hold plays and different events, and there's also an education element to it because we are the home of a birthplace of Robert Boyle, father of modern chemistry. So we do a lot of science projects. We work with Discover Primary Science. We go out to schools, workshops. Tourism, like in a small rural community, is very sporadic and it's not going to sustain you. So all the other elements of the business pull it together. We have an escape room where we lock people in and they try and escape. We try and create walking tours, different things like that for the area. And we're in the process of working with the local community on developing the St. Declan's Way walk, which is 115 kilometres between Tipperary and Cashel and Ardmore. So there's a lot of community work that goes on. We work with the Tidy Towns Committee, the local council, the Leo, and all of the other organisations and agencies to try and bring business into West Waterford. So that's basically what we work on.
That's brilliant, Mala, and it's just interesting there how you've spanned, as you've just mentioned there, tourism, education, history, St. Declan's Way. That there's a lot going on there, and in a place where it sounds like that you're really levering the best of what Lismore has to offer. It's a place that I've been a number of times myself, and it's really great to hear how you're bringing that holistic element into everything. Eileen, can we go to you next? Will you tell us a little bit more about South Meath Social Economy, please?
Well, South Meath Social Economy, our trading name is Home Life, and we're a very unique social enterprise in Ireland. There's no other social enterprise like ours. We provide a home and garden maintenance service to older people across the whole of County Meath, people also with disabilities. And our aim or our goal is to keep these people living independently in their own homes and their own communities for as long as possible. So our goal is to make their homes healthy, safe places for them to live, and also their gardens. We also administer the Seniors Alert Scheme. And we also do county council grant works for housing adoption grants. That's an overall of what we do.
Brilliant, Eileen, and thank you. And it's striking there how it's particularly, I'm really struck by the fact that this is the only social enterprise that takes care of this particular demographic within a county. And I think it'll be really interesting to hear more from you and from Martha as well about the work that you do and what we can learn from you there. Maria, from Rosslare Community and Sports Centre, so far we've heard from one place that takes care of a community from a holistic point of view, another place that takes care of a community from a demographic specific point of view. What about you? What is involved in your area?
Well, we're a community and sports centre in Rosslare, County Wexford. So I don't know if many people know, but Rosslare is quite a popular, Rosslare Strand is a popular area for the holiday makers, the tourists. We've totally two different seasons here in Rosslare. We have our summer season, which is crazy busy. And then we have our winter season where we actually focus on community groups. So as we're a sports and recreational facility, we would have 4 tennis courts, crazy golf playground. We have an access for all community garden, as well as bowling greens, all weather pitch playing fields, and charity shop boutique. Along with that, then inside our main community centre, we would have a sports hall, a boxing gym, 2 changing rooms, a kitchen, meeting room, and our sweet shop. So in the summertime, we would focus on outdoor activities. An awful lot of our revenue would come from that. We are a social enterprise. So we would be busy taking bookings from all the different facilities. Along with that, then we would run a full summer program for children down here in the village, so they can avail of all the different summer camps, from dancing to music, singing, as well as the FAI camps for soccer, along with Naughty Scientist camps and bricks for kids, anything that's creative for everyone, on top of using all our facilities such as the crazy golf, tennis court, etc. So it is pretty busy. In the summertime then we would, or in the wintertime, we would focus then more on community groups, that would, people who would live in the village. We have quite an age, our dependency would be higher than the national average here for anybody over 55. So a lot of the groups would come together. We would have some cooking programs, we have a mosaic group, art groups, there would be walking soccer, things like that. So it's about engaging with the community all the time and basing it on what our age demographic would be.
Interesting there, particularly Maria, that it sounds like, and I don't take a sporting analogy, but you really have a game of two halves there when you have the tourism season, as well as taking care of the local community all the time, as well as particularly during the winter. And then Christy, how about you? White Oaks Acorn Project. Can you tell us a little bit about that then, please?
Yeah, so hi Susan. So we're based on the border here of on Donegal, on the border of Derry. We're a multi-purpose enterprise consisting of, we have a 6-acre natural bogland, a Celtic prayer garden that was created by Father Neil Carlin. We have organically certified farm set up on a 36-acre site. From that, we have a farm shop that supplies the fresh vegetables, organic eggs, and locally produced produces as well. From there, we have a cafe, a newly furbished cafe here, which has really come onto its own now through lockdown. That's in part of the centre. We have 5 self-catering accommodations that we hire out through Airbnb and Donegal cottages. We also have a training centre where businesses from north and south come and use our facilities there, with all the modern comms goes with that. We also we develop a lot of programs for groups north and south. A lot of the school groups would come here and do retreats. We're looking at programs now for around science and nature. So where primary schools come and do bug finding within the gardens, or a science program. But we also are running programs within the organic aspects of the business, where our head gardeners are developing programs for the university in Magee, and also for primary schools as well, on teaching organic growing. So other groups have come along out here because of where we're in the country. So we're in a prime location now since lockdown for people to come out and go for walks and all. So we're looking at programs now around that of getting people out into the open air. And our next one is now a country market on our grounds, which is running on the 31st of July. So these are the types of programs that we're running at the moment.
Brilliant, Christy. And as I'm listening to you as well, I'm hearing that there's a big focus there on levering the natural environment around you, and the focus on the spirituality as well, particularly going back to where the whole centre began, as well as inviting local parts of your community to come in and participate in various different programs. And what I'd love to do now is to go back and to ask each of you just a specific question that we can maybe determine a learning from that we can share with everybody. And again, just to let you know, there's lots happening on Twitter. Sabina says social enterprise taking centre stage at the shared learning event, and she's commenting there on the hashtag. And I see another comment up here saying, oh, it's so good to hear directly from social enterprises across the country and the breadth and depth of work that they carry out. So please do keep your comments there as well as on the Q&A. And if you have any questions, I will do what I can to make sure that they get submitted here to the people in question. Malika, we start with you. I mean, the focus that you mentioned there, you talk about the escape room, for example. And lots of people have been escaping out of said rooms for a while over the past while. But can you tell us about the focus on technology that you have brought to bear within the organisation, so that you can look forward to maybe other times when there might be other challenges, or indeed maybe a new opportunity for the centre?
Yeah, well, just before lockdown, we have always had a show that tells the history of the area, tries to incorporate everything. But what we did, we worked with Fáilte Ireland on developing a VR virtual reality experience, where the castle where in the town where we live is quite spectacular, but it is privately owned. So we wanted to give people the opportunity to see what it was like inside. We videoed all the rooms in 360, and we put characters from the past into those rooms to tell their historical story and tell what they were doing there. For instance, Adele Astaire was married into the castle, and different people. John F. Kennedy's sister was married into the castle. So, like, we wanted to introduce those characters, let people know that they once lived in Lismore, and go back as far as Robert Boyle and science in 1627. So what we did is we filmed it, put it on virtual reality headsets, and people felt like they were flying over Lismore and going down into the castle. So it opened up a whole new technology for us, and people can come in, they can use a tablet, and the QR codes on the wall will tell them the history of what the particular item they're looking at. So we're using virtual reality, augmented reality, and we're using the dress-up room, which was the most popular part of the whole experience before we had to close it down, was people dressing up as the characters and taking pictures and putting them on social media, and using that to kind of get our message out there as well, you know, about the history and everything like that. So we kind of, we didn't have long with that. Of course, closed down in March 2020. We opened for a couple of weeks last year, and we're now open again, and people are really excited about it. We can't do as much as we there, sorry, just lost the connection. But yeah, so I mean, we're trying to incorporate all new types of technology into how we deliver the history message in the town, you know. So
and I think that's really interesting though, Mala. I think just even the fact that you're engaging with those types of technologies to bring a very old world experience into a new world, I suppose, in a way. And Maria, can I go to you, because a specific question has come in, and I'd just like to put it to you, and that is, there is a huge amount of work being carried out by each group. I mean, absolutely, I'd agree wholeheartedly with that. The question is, Maria, how do they manage it all? Like, when you're talking about having two different seasons, like so many different facilities, and tailoring to so many different experiences and so on, how do you manage it all?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, basically, we have a great team here. Pobble would fund our FTEs here, our full-time employees. So we have a great team that are based here for the year. Then we would take on seasonal staff and casual staff throughout the summertime as well. We take on a lot of younger children who maybe it might be their first job ever, that they would look after the playground area in the summertime. We have a fantastic maintenance team here as well, and we would also have TUS workers and CE workers here that are on different programs. So we would also actually look after the village. We would cut the grass in certain areas of the village as well. So those workers constantly help us out all the time, and we would be lost without them. But our volunteers as well are huge to us. We have a great bunch of volunteers here in the village that do so much work. Our board is fantastic, our directors, they work so hard behind the scenes and assist me with them, with everything. You know, we would run an awful lot of fundraising. Obviously, for the last 2 years, our fundraising has been decimated, but we were lucky enough to do a good fundraising campaign at the start of the year. But I suppose we just have to look after the different sections. We have to organise that the administration staff know what they're doing. We have our maintenance team there to support. We've had a lot of grant programs that we were awarded last year that we had to put on hold with COVID, and we were lucky enough then that we could proceed with them and get them completed for the summer months ahead. So we've just completed our resurfacing of our 2 new tennis courts, thanks to the Sports Capital programme, which came back out in 2018. So, you know, it really is down to the volunteers that help out. We have a wonderful group called the Friends of Rosslare who look after our Access for All garden. It's an award-winning garden. It's fantastic. So without the staff, without the grant funding, and without our volunteers and a great board of directors, that's how we keep going.
Well, I think, Maria, also as well, what you're not saying is your great leadership capacity within all of that as well, because it sounds like that, you know, so many people with so many probably amazing goodwill, as well as trying to resource all of that to make sure that the goodwill can turn into action. It takes a lot of creativity and action as well on your part. Martha, can I go to you, please, in South Meath social economy? In your area, like if I go back there specifically to what Eileen said, it's about and I'm just going to make sure that I have this correct, is that you want to enable older people and those with disabilities to be able to live at home and live independently through taking care of their homes and gardens. It sounds like that's a very, you know, demographic specific area, but it also sounds like this should be in every county in the country. What or how has demand changed over time? Is there a growing demand for what you do? And how are you able to service that?
There is a growing demand. I mean, since we've started, we've completed each year on year, it's increased the number of jobs that we carry out. Definitely the demographic, I mean, the statistics are showing that people are living longer and like to live in their own homes, in their own environment. Families like to keep their loved ones at home also. It would take a minor repair done in time to avoid a major job later on a house. So it really is just about keeping on top of things, allowing all these things to happen, make people aware that we're here to do that, and they know we're here to do that. They rely on us. They rely on us for all sorts of things, not just their gardening. It could be, you know, once we do their garden, they want us to do painting. That's kind of, it just develops from there, and it's word of mouth then as well. Their neighbours then are onto us and wanting to be, you know, to be looked after as well. It does help people to stay at home. People are much happier in their own community. They feel safe and secure. That it's where they belong and it's where they thrive.
And would I be right in thinking, Martha, that, like, well, I think I am, based on what you said there, is that relationship grows over time, and does also the people who work within your organization, have they been there for quite some time as well? So is the relationship with the organization or with the people in it, or both?
Both. Mostly people. The people are kind of, we've a great team of guys. We've guys here from day one, and we were established since 2002. So a lot of our customers would ask for them by name, and they want this particular guy, so much so that we could, during lockdown, and our guys would have gone to these people, to their people they know, and go get their pensions for them, do all sorts of things over and above their shopping. They bring them to hairdressing appointments, even to bring them for their vaccines, and there could be like anything. It's more like a befriending service as well. Like, we'd never have to kind of ask our lads to, it would never be an issue if a job is needed to be done. They always volunteer to do it and to help the person. It wouldn't matter what time of the evening or anything. They wouldn't just say it's quitting time, now we go home. There is no such thing here. They're over and above in every aspect. They just really care about these people, and they've known them for a long time. And it's just a friendship, and it's a reliance and a dependence, and it's all very positive, really. They're as close as family with a lot of these people.
You know, it's interesting what you say there, Martha, about, you know, the reliance and the befriending service. One of the statistics that really stood out to me over lockdown was, and it's one I hadn't heard before, and I was surprised I hadn't actually, is that there are 200,000 people in Ireland that live alone. And if you do have terms like, you know, lockdown, if you do have terms like social distance, if you do have terms like cocooning, they can be quite isolationist terms. So having the outreach and having that friend as well as that extended family, it sounds like that actually the work that you do is only the beginning. It's the relationships that you have thereafter is the real, well, not the real value that you add, because you add real value anyway, but a more holistic explanation of that. And another question has come in here. Christy, can I go to you on this? It seems to be a great community spirit behind all of these initiatives. Do these projects rely on a lot of volunteers? What's your own scenario in that case?
Yeah, we do certain schemes throughout the year around Halloween and Christmas there in the garden, and we need the scheme that we run at Christmas, we need 40 volunteers for that. We also the pumpkin festival that we have here is around Halloween, and again we have volunteers to come in and have a day of face painting and just a family orientation for setup there for families. So we do have a lot of volunteers on our books, and unfortunately because of the lockdown, we couldn't manage to bring them out here. We also have ones in the garden as well, helping out the lads up there with the organics, and in the shop as well. But yeah, we're so reliant on volunteers.
And also, Chrissy, is just something that you mentioned earlier on as well, that kind of chimes in with what Mala spoke about. So she speaks about where Lismore Heritage is going to be forming part of St. Declan's Way, which could potentially be the Irish Camino in time to come. But it also sounds like with that very spiritual nature that that's going on with your own organisation, what do you feel the spiritual nature in the community is that White Oaks addresses?
Well, we, as following when we established the community, the Columba community back in 1981, it was a very small community, and I think that now is the right time again for little small groups coming back and exploring more of their spirituality. I think the place that we have here, it's quite quiet, and it really is a blessed place. The garden that we have there, and so what we noticed that there's a variety of different groups coming along here. Walk-in groups would meet here, and they'd walk into the garden and have a time of reflection, things like that. So we're really tapping into all different groups now, cycling groups, walking groups, hiking groups. They come along and they experience the setup that we have here. Not only can they walk in the garden, but they can come here and experience the food that we grow through the cafe, through the likes of the produce that we supply in the cafe. So yeah, it really is a wide open space, plenty of room to move around here, but also just where people are at spiritually as well, and have an opportunity. And they also can tap into the likes of certain facilitators that we would have here, depending on what direction they'd like to take with spirituality.
Well, I do have to agree with what's happening here. I have to say, I'm admiring not just all of what you're saying and the impact that you're having, but I will just share a couple of comments with you that are coming up here online. So Southwest Mayo has actually given me a compliment, which I'm very appreciative, but it's actually a compliment to you, and that is that it says here, Susan Hayes is rightly calling out the modest answers and names the leadership capacity that is needed to build a strong social enterprise, a capacity that we see in abundance here at Resilience Renewal. And that's the point, is that while you do talk about, for example, in the case there of where listening to Maria talk about the staff and the full-time employees, the young employment, the workers in the programs, the board of directors, the manager at the centre, the friends of Rosslare, is that it takes you really, the people here in front of me on the screen, it takes you to be able to drive that. Also as well, I see a comment up here. Sorry, there's lots they're coming up here now. Lots and lots of them are coming up here. Another tweet here says fabulous stories from Lismore and White Oaks, Southmeath and Rosslare Community and Sports Centre here at Cooperation to Succeed. And a lot of people are talking about just the amount that you achieve with the resources that you have. Also, there's some comments up here as well, being very complimentary, Mala, of the use of technology, including the QR codes to give the history, use of virtual reality, and of course, the dress-up room as well. I think that the focus as well in Southmeath on the older people and the people with disabilities, but looking at them where the home and the garden is just the beginning, and where the relationship with them really evolves over time. That's also something that's coming up here. And also Christy, the fact that you have so many groups. I mean, if I was to count the amount of times you said the word group on this session, well, sorry, I'd have lost count by now. But the point is that you can just see how you're bringing all of those elements together. So many people are welcome, and they all have a role, whether it's passing or whether it's from the point of reflection or participating in the cafe, etc. So on that note, I'm going to thank you all so much indeed for your time. We really appreciate having you here. That half hour has just absolutely flown by, and please do check in Resilience Renewal on Twitter afterwards, and you'll see all of the comments as I've been bringing them up to you, and really appreciate it again. And thank you all, and best wishes with all that you do in the future.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you indeed. So now what I'm going to do is that I am going to bring into you our guest speaker who is now, who has just joined us here. Good, very early morning to you indeed, Randy. It is great to have you with us here. And Randy, of course,
I got my coffee.
Yeah. Good. Well, I have one too, if it's any consolation to you. And of course, you are joining us today from Charlottesville, Virginia. And you're going to share some thoughts with us around design thinking, particularly arising from your book, Design Thinking for Good. So over to you, Randy, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you very much. First, it's amazing you're on schedule. That's just pretty impressive right there. Secondly, I want to say to all the folks out there, thank you for doing what you're doing. We've been dealing in business design thinking, improving innovation in business, but about 6 or 7 years ago, we came to the realization that we really need to be thinking about the more important things of the world, the greater good, the people that we live with. And so hence, our previous book is Design Thinking for the Greater Good, Innovation in the Social Sector, which fits pretty much exactly what I understand that your operation is doing there in the 3 counties near Dublin. Hopefully, the design thinking will indeed take off pretty much everywhere on the planet. So here, I hope you can see the share. Does the slide come up? The slides up?
It absolutely does indeed. Yes, take it away there, Randy.
Okay, so thanks a lot. I'm going to be working with the design thinking for growth methodologies developed by my wife, Jean Lidka, and I'm actually working from her office right now. She is, I always like to say, the brains of the operation, and sometimes I'm just the mouth. And what she has done is bring ways for people to understand individually how they can innovate as a small group and collaborative creativity. So I got to have this over here. Let me see if I can advance the slide. Oops, my slides are not advancing. There it goes. Okay. The first thing to note is that the real money on the planet is moving very heavily towards innovation kinds of operations. This is primarily from IBM in 2016. This survey found out that the CEOs of large corporations and some small operations are very worried about their ability to innovate in the future, their company, their organization's ability. And we think what we've learned is that government and social sectors are in the same basic bailiwick with one big difference. You don't have the money to spend like the big corporations do. Notice that next to last one there, 2/3 say company innovation must improve. 2/3 of these people saying that we've got to be able to come up with new ways of looking at the future, new ways of looking at life now, and making it better for the people that we are serving. Now, I like to call those the prospects. My wife doesn't like that term, but the prospects are the people that we're designing something for, that we're trying to get to use or to make their lives better, which is what y'all do, of course. Also notice that it has to be part of strategy. What has happened over the years is organizations have developed a way of thinking, which has been we're inside out. How we do things out, as opposed to understanding the outside in, which is the prospect or the stakeholders or the clients, whatever term you use, how they see what we're doing in the world today. Okay, generally speaking, humans think that creative ideas, innovation comes from great minds. In fact, historians call this the great mind theory. And we feel that the people come together and they are so brilliant that they will bring up a new idea. And of course, that's Steve Jobs and Jack Ma from China. Steve Jobs, of course, is no longer with us. But anyway, yes, they did come up with great ideas, but it's more likely that there was a synthesis of a whole lot of things happening, and people put together unique, creative ways of looking at it. And they just happen to be the ones who got the credit for it at the moment. So in design thinking, we think that primarily innovation is slightly different from invention. Invention is just something unique. Innovation is the ability, something unique, and make value out of it. So in design thinking, which also called human-centered design, we think that the primary motivation, the primary way to come to innovation is a deep understanding of normally unarticulated needs and desires of human beings. And I'm going to go forward just a little bit briefly here. I'm going to hold up this thing, which you probably have in your own operation right now. This is a Swiffer made by Procter & Gamble. Now, the reason I want to hold that up, I'll refer to it in a minute, is that when they first went out to try to figure out what to do, what new chemicals to put in cleaning to help people mop the floors, when they first went out to do that innovation, they found out two things very quickly that no one talked about. First, when they went into women's homes, and primarily women, and they went into women's homes to find out how to help them mop the floor with a better chemical, women's floors were already clean. It wasn't cleaning the floor was important to women and the homeowners. It was the idea that we're a clean person. And that's an entirely different concept than cleaning the floor. The second thing they learned, watching women clean the floors that were already clean them again so they could get the project down on how to do it, was that women and the homeowners spent more time cleaning the mop than they did cleaning the floor. So what that led was to this removable concept called a Swiffer, right? So all you do is you peel this thing off and either throw it away, unfortunately, not good for the environment, or throw it in the washer and clean it. Now, this has led to a $500 million annual business, okay? But folks, when they ask them, would not have said, I spend most of my time cleaning the mop. They would talk about how hard they had to work, how their back hurt. So the unarticulated need was incredibly important to come up with a really wonderful idea. Now, this is my shorthand definition of design thinking, exploring deeply. I'm not talking about just the standard statistics, but I'm talking about understanding the human being in there. By empathizing continually, ideate, coming up with new solutions rapidly, prototyping simply, making up something. The first mop did not look like this. It's the final product. Testing regularly, which is meaning going back and looking for the bad news, trying your best to hear the bad news, and then iterating constantly and taking that bad news and changing, taking what people who use your prospects will use whatever service or idea you come up with and iterating to make it better. Now, I talked to you a little bit right there about the Swiffer, but let me show you a couple others. First of all, the last one there, the GE Healthcare. When they first invented the MRIs, what they discovered was that putting those kids in that big tunnel as it slides in terrified them. And they had to sedate almost every child. About 8 in 10 of them had to be sedated to have that happen. And then they went back and they felt like it. They talked to the children themselves in an unthreatening situation. And they learned that the kids had fears that could be allayed by a variety of different approaches. They could go in with the favorite teddy bear, for example. They could go in and see a cartoon on the inside of the MRI or on the right adjacent to it. And almost immediately, by understanding the perspective from the point of view of the child, they reverse it from 80% to literally only 2% in the first year. And I kind of back up. New Zealand is my favorite story simply because it is a government that has worked fairly hard to invest design thinking in all of their operations and have been very successful in a variety of ways. But first, let me talk about the Monash Medical Center in Melbourne, Australia. Monash is a 3-hospital operation down there, and they have had about 25 now design thinking projects since first beginning project, the very first project they did about 8 years ago, was to help patients' families access and understand the hospital itself. People were just getting lost in the hallways, and operations were changing, and different principals would move to different areas, and people were just getting lost. So that was their first one. Very, very simple. They have gone through a whole new mental operation now called Agile, and that's in our book, Design Thinking for the Greater Good, and a variety of other ones, about 20 again. And now they are at the position of doing what they call Monash Watch. Now, Monash Watch is a very interesting project because they are changing the way healthcare is paid for. Typically, it's paid by service. You get an x-ray, you pay $100. You get a doctor visit, and a nurse comes in and gives you a shot, that's $200 by service. And instead, they're changing it about how they can get people well. And unlike what you would expect, to keep people well, what they do is they start with folks who have been in the hospital a lot. Someone who's been in for 3 years or 3 times in the last year. And they convince the Victoria state government down there to pay them what the Victoria would have paid them for 3 visits the first time they're in the next year. So if it costs $5,000 a visit, they basically get $15,000, and to do their best to keep them out of the hospital. And what they've discovered, they spent over 400, they interviewed over 400 people, what they call super utilizers. They interviewed them and dealt with them and lived with them almost, and did some really interesting findings. What they discovered primarily was that the actual medical care, what people talk about as, what doctors talk about as medicine, was not helping them much at all. The social aspect was especially very important to keep people out of the hospital and to keep them healthy. So wellness has a lot more to do than medicine. And then what they did is they took this money, this $15,000, and they hired primarily grandmothers. The grandmothers met the folks that first time they were in the hospital, the patients the first time they were in, and then they would follow them and keep up with them, mostly through telephone calls, but even occasionally through visits. About once a week, they would always call, and if there was something a little tighter, they would call more often. And then in the room where the phone bank was going on would be a nurse practitioner. And the nurse, if something came up, she could check on them. Primarily, all the women, the grandmothers did, was talk to the patients and basically say, how you feeling, right? And if there was any issue, they could call the nurse over, and the nurse could decide, whoops, we better send an ambulance right now. This has been immensely successful. I'm going to read briefly for you. This is one of the replies that one of the patients got replied. She says, I have started through Monash Watch, which has effectively saved my life. They listen, they understand me, and give me so much support. My life is worth something now. It is so good to hear. I look forward to the call each week and the encouragement and self-worth to continue as we iron out my fears, my depressions, my thoughts, my issues. They are positive phone calls, and not only look at me, my kids, also my kids, about what controls my health. This is a fantastic program, and it needs to be continued for all other people. So Monash Watch is being a wonderful success as we speak right now. Okay, now back to New Zealand then. New Zealand, again, is my favorite story because they do a lot of things from the government on down. Here is something that's very awkward. You look at it, demonstrating the complexities of being poor, an empathy tool. Now you notice the odd size. Why is the odd size? This is the understanding all of the people, all of the stakeholders in a thing. When Think Place, which is a design constituency, and the Auckland City Hospital, City Mission, when they did this, they said, we want to make sure that bureaucrats don't just put it in a drawer and forget about it. So they made it very large and very awkward. And what they did is they followed 100 families for a year. In that year, They discovered all of the things that happened to them. And they had this mountains of data, and they knew that they could get no bureaucrat to ever read it. So in doing this, in building this, what they did is they took what we call a journey map and followed this woman. Her name is Charlotte. They followed her life as she goes through, this particular case, her employment journey, how to find things. The yellows, or the quote she says, this blue of the things, are the emotions she's feeling: appreciative, fatigue, stress, powerless. The line is the journey, what she goes through. Each one of these is when she runs into some way that the city of Auckland could have actually helped her. The city of Auckland, the country of New Zealand, could actually help her. And this is her employment journey. And then when this came out, the Deputy Prime Minister who followed it had the most powerful comment I think I've ever heard about design thinking. He said, "I never knew how time-consuming it is to be poor, and I never knew how expensive it is to be poor." And he said, all of my staff, if you really want to work for me, you're going to have to volunteer and in soup kitchens and homes to help these people. Another story, I don't want to take too much time. New Zealand has also done wonderful things with their driver's license. But I'm going to stop because I'm running a little bit long on the time. So I'll go on. Now, what we're talking about is basically behavioral economics. And 3 of the last Nobel Prize winners in economics have won the Nobel with behavioral economics. The bestseller book, Nudge, and there's two books past it, talk about how you help people do what is best for society, best for themselves, and best for the community. That last little quote, "There are lies, damn lies, and statistics," that comes from an American writer by the name of Mark Twain, a wonderful writer who's been dead for over 100 years. But he understood that statistics are so often used to make points as opposed to understand. And that's the reason he says there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. We all use statistics. We're very used to it. The methodology we're talking about is fairly simple. This reflects the reality of what effective leaders actually do. What is, what if, what wows, and what works. Now, these are the main questions that keep any design thinker, any innovator on the concept to arriving at something that is an invention and innovative, means it has value in the real world. Notice where the lines cross. What is, what if, what wows, and what works. Those lines cross are important because primarily, and when it's expanding, we're looking for divergent thinking. And when they cross, we want to converge on some ideas. Now, this is a fairly simple process, a 15-step process. Now, why do we put it in steps? First of all, there's no one way to be creative. That doesn't exist. That's an oxymoron in itself. But what we have here is a way to take people through the very messy, very ambiguous process to get to the solutions, a solution or a series of solutions which will work. They do things like when you make your plans, that's the first crossover point when it converges, and the team will get together and converge. They establish design criteria, which is the parameters around any solutions. Napkin pitches are potential ways to assess a problem. A prototype is a down and dirty, easy way to help people give you feedback, the stakeholders, the prospects, to give you feedback. And then designing the on-ramp is literally going forward with a pilot. Okay. First, we want to work through observation is incredibly important. And then we follow it with ethnographic interviewing. We are seeking to do, as the Sioux Indians used to say in the United States, to walk a mile in their moccasins. We say very quickly up point, you want to take insights. You want to take the chance of being wrong and draw judgments and then see if those judgments are right. That's where the ideas work. Now, this last thing is a quote from Joseph Stalin. Everybody knows Joseph, a brutal man, and he was a brutal person. And generally, this quote talks about how brutal he is. 1 death is a tragedy. 1 million deaths is a statistic. However, what we want to emphasize is the other way of looking at it. if you can understand the tragedy, you can do something about the statistic. If you can understand the tragedy, you can do something about the statistic. Einstein, roughly the same time, gives us even better. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. The first half of those 4 questions, what is and what if, is the intuitive mind. Put that first, then go back and check it. The analytical mind, what wows, what works. So you put the thinking, the creativity first, instead of, oh, we can't do that. We have too much, we don't have enough money, we don't have X, Y, and Z. Okay. And again, that's the situation, that's the model right there. All right, now, the best way to do this is through buying this book. All right, it's only about 15 bucks on Amazon. It's the how-to book. There are a lot of others. Obviously, I've already referred to this one. This is a lot more expensive, and it's not something that really helps you. It's just examples of how you do it. This how-to will work fairly well. You can also go to Design at Darden. There's online courses. Caroline Egan took the Coursera course, which is mostly video. The advantage of taking an official course through Darden, which is the University of Virginia's business school, the advantage of doing that is you're provided a mentor or a coach, and you come in as a team on whatever your organization is. You come in as a team, and therefore you get coaching as you go through the very messy process. When you get stuck, you get help getting past it, but it's really all in here in the book itself. Okay, now here's the thing that I like. Instead of hiring one of the big expensive think place out of New Zealand, for example, or the design management out of Ireland right there, this is doable by all if you think through it. You don't have to hire IDEO or Luma, and you put that intuitive brain first, then the analytical. You don't forget those bean counters who can make sure that you're not overstepping what you can do. You don't forget them, but you put the thinking, the creativity first, the collaborative creativity. And it is very effective at getting solution buy-ins. If you go back to like the brainstorming part or creating design criteria, that's when you bring in like management and you ask them for their help. When you put the napkins pitches out, you ask management to say, okay, well, what do you think? And you get them perhaps to help you decide which one to advance into a prototype. And you seek to iterate constantly. You admit, I can't do it right. This is too messy. This is too wicked. I can't be right. We're going to iterate. So we're always learning. My most important thing is that this is especially powerful for those frontline people who usually don't have power. And if they can have their ideas come forward and blossom, design thinking helps them do that. And then they're more connected to the people you're trying to serve. Now back to the money. The money says design thinking works and works very well. Forrester put out this in 2018, a 301% return on investment if you use the IBM design thinking operation. They were paid by IBM to analyze what IBM did. A 301%. That means for every dollar somebody spends on innovation in design thinking, they will get $3 return. And McKinsey found this, a 56% return in shareholder return improvement in it, and a revenue growth of 32%. What that does is help the people, the board, come up, hey, we should go ahead and try this. It's showing it's working just about everywhere. We can see. Again, this is my shorthand definition. Explore deeply, empathize continually, ideate rapidly, prototype simply, test regularly, iterate constantly. And that's it. I hope I haven't bored you too much.
Well, Randy, I have been watching what people have been saying across the various media, and I'm going to reflect that right back to you. But one point that has come in through the Q&A that I just like to put to you, it's almost summarized what you've said over the last 24 minutes in one line, and that is, it seems that the key to design thinking is the ability to walk in the shoes of the service user or client to rethink the problem.
yes, the empathy is crucial. It is the bottom line of understanding human beings. We're all screwed up, every single one of us, in slightly different ways. But if you can come up with a method of understanding the groups of people who are screwed up in their own way, you can develop solutions that help them deal with whatever the situation is. So yeah, the empathy is crucial. Ethnography, there's now a museum for ethnography in New Zealand. The ethnography is important because that is the ability to step inside the shoes and a variety of ways to do it. I always say, try to observe whatever the problem or issue is first, and then go do the interviewing and literally talk to the people, because the vast majority of us cannot say why we did something today, much less what we might do in the future. So if we talk to people, what we have done is we already starting to cause them to change their behavior. If we watch them do whatever, or attempt to watch them do whatever, what we will find out is the things that they don't even know they're doing. Remember the Swiffer. The reason I use that example is women did not even recognize that they were spending more time cleaning the mop than they were cleaning the floor.
And then another point, the Q&A is coming in here. It's coming here hard and fast, which is super. One person here has said, fascinating process, so very generous. And over here on Twitter, people are saying innovation comes from the core of community development, understanding people and meeting them where they're at. Somebody else says, and all built around empathy too, just like you've mentioned. Now, can I ask you about the graphic? Because there's a lot of people commenting on that as well. And that is, you see where you have the greatest divergence, okay? So that is at the what if stage. You have what is, what if, what wows, what works. But where I'm distinctively thinking that the what if has the greatest divergence there. What exactly is the rationale behind that? Should that be where we spend more time thinking? Or is that because we need to get a greater diversity of views? Could you maybe just explain that, why that particular shape is so different from the others?
The greater diversity of views is okay. What it is. What we really want is, you want people to come forward with ideas regardless. We don't want them to self-edit themselves, which happens immensely, especially those folks who are introverted. The process we use in the Designing for Growth methodology, we make sure that the quietest people have the ability to have ideas and to come forward. And we use mostly Post-it notes for that, which are unidentified, of who writes them or why and how. And we do that silently the first round. And then we stick them on a board. And then we will go through and choose ones. And so I could, if I'm introverted, I can argue for somebody else's Post-it note because it's very similar to mine. Mm-hmm. And I feel more secure and safer. The primary thing of having this methodology is that it makes it safe for people to advance and to try creativity and innovation when they're used to filling in the dots. And then filling in the dots does not bring up to anything new. So that if you have, if you're any kind of bureaucrat, and that's not a negative term because thank God we have bureaucrats. If you are a bureaucrat, what you do is you have a set thing that you have to accomplish every day. And we're asking people to think in new ways. So giving this process is security. I'm like, say, insight generation. Oh, I might not trust my insight. It could be so totally wrong. So I don't say it. No, say it, get it out there, put it on the board, and then we can discuss it. Then we can analyze it. And that helps us do this because you can say, well, I don't know if I did it right, but I know I did it. Nobody can say I didn't do it. And that is security that helps people move forward. When you come to those convergent points where the lines cross, regardless of how big the wave is, the sine wave is, when you come to those convergent points, you put something down on paper. The design criteria is what I really love. In design criteria, you say, if anything were possible, if there were no constraints whatsoever, what should I do? If anything were possible, our solution would X. And then you fill it in.
I apologize that I'm interjecting there, but I do want to bring up a point that you mentioned because I wrote it down here and I think it's really important. and it comes down to that convergence, and that you, and I'm quoting you as saying, you have to take the chance of being wrong. Because isn't that often the challenge, Randy, is that we try to do everything right, or even like you're saying there, we try to self-edit while we're in that drafting stage, is that by actually taking the risk that something could be wrong, because, and you're a great man for quotes, so I'll give you one that I live by as well, and that is that if you win, you'll be successful, if you lose, you'll be wise, is that there is learning, and there's a lot of value in trying and doing. I mean, isn't that in essence what, to take another one of your point, is that prototype simply, test regularly, and iterate constantly, is that taking that risk, just like you're saying, or taking the chance of being wrong, is very important.
Oh yeah, that's it exactly. You've got to be willing to take the risk. It's not easy for most of us. The way I like to think about it is that if you went to the Silicon Valley, where all of the money seems to be going in the last 20 years, and you found the folks that back the technical innovation, those folks invest in 10 different ideas and expect only 1.7 of them to come up. So they expect to lose very much. They expect to lose 80% of the time. Figuring out when to stop investing is the key. Start investing, have the ideas, see if they can work, do the iteration, and find out, and then quickly say, or at some point in time say, this is not going to work. Quit investing. So the idea of you're going to be wrong 80% of the time is a really powerful way to look at it. And these are the very well-off, very successful folks in Silicon Valley, the money.
Well, on that note, Randy, when you go on Twitter and you have a look at #resiliencerenewal, you'll see lots and lots of compliments waiting there for you. It's been a pleasure to hear from you this morning, and it's been, we really appreciate A, your insights, and B, the fact that you've joined us live from Charlottesville, Virginia. Thank you very much indeed, and we wish you and Jean all the very best in all that you do.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you indeed. And sticking to Randy's compliment to us about how everything is running on time, on a very timely note now, I'm going to bring in our next two speakers. The first person is Anne-Marie McHugh. She's the chairperson of the Castleblaney Regeneration Committee, and she is going to take us through planning for the future, who will be followed then by Elaine Donoghue, General Manager of BIA Innovator Campus. So first of all, Anne-Marie, over to you, and now we're going live to Castleblaney.
Thank you very much, Susan, and I hope I don't mess up your lovely schedule. You've done so well so far. And I just have to say, I've had a very inspiring morning, I have to say. I think it's really interesting that, you know, the length and breadth of this country, there are people who are volunteering, who are doing their best, but absolutely no financial gain, only to try to make some sort of an impact on their town, their village, or wherever they live. So I think it's been a really inspiring morning. So I'm not going to keep you too long. What I'm going to just do is show you a few slides of what we have been doing in Castleblaney. I want to check you can see that.
We can see a black screen at the moment, Anne-Marie. Okay, there we go. Good to go.
Okay, one more slide up there. So my name is Anne-Marie McHugh. I'm from Castleblaney, as Susan mentioned, and this is just a little view of Castleblaney. I'm sure some of you may not be aware, we have a beautiful lake here. And I'm doing this talk on behalf of not only Castleblaney Regeneration, but on behalf of, there's a new committee set up to do a new community audit. And I've written there, be careful when you attend a course with Caroline, and I've heard her name mentioned already, and I'm kind of being a bit facetious there. And Caroline did a course in County Monaghan for a number of different volunteer groups. And I have to say, it was one of the best courses I did. It was on community leadership. I did say this to Caroline, it was from 7:30 to 9:30 on a Thursday evening over Zoom. And I thought at the start, I'll never stick 8 weeks of this. And I never missed 5 minutes of it. It was really, really good. But she's the reason that I'm here today. So thanks, Caroline, for asking me to be part of this prestigious group that we're with. So what I'm going to cover is just a little background to Castleblaney Regeneration, you know, where it came from, you know, what we've done so far, you know, our successes. So, you know, the main version of this talk is collaboration to success. So just to show you a few pictures of what we have been proud of, what we've done, and then planning for the future. So our new community audit, and it actually ties in quite well with what Randy was saying there about asking people what they want and being empathetic to that, rather than thinking, well, we're a committee and we have an idea of what people want. And then obviously if anybody has any questions, they're very welcome to ask. So this is the market house in our town. As you can see, it's a very iconic sort of a building, but it's in a state of dereliction, unfortunately, but we have plans for that. So for those who may not know, we're literally on the border. So there's a population of 3,500. We're 4 miles from the border. The reputation is of a music town, and a lot of kind of, musical people have come from the town. We have a great tradition of football, although we haven't won a championship for about 20 years, unfortunately. And I think we were the team with the most senior championships in Ireland until I think Crossmeden has taken over that. We're also known for Loch Mucknow, and of course, I couldn't but mention Big Tom. So oftentimes, whenever you're asked where you're from and you say Castleblaney, they say, oh, Big Tom country. So for those of you who know who he is, you know who I'm talking about. And maybe for those younger people, you may not. So in 2015, there was 2 public meetings held in the town, and they were held by Monaghan County Council, and they were asking business people and community groups in the town to meet. And the reason why is the Monaghan County Council felt they didn't really know the voice of Castleblaney. We had county councillors and councillors, but with the the previous way things were, there was more kind of connection with the towns. So they asked people to come and have a chat, and out of that there was a committee set up. So it comprised of the Tidy Towns, the Historic Society, there's a new sustainable energy group, the local football team, retailers, and spearheaded by County Council. And the mission of the group, which is us, is to make Castleblaney a great town to live in, to shop in, and to stay in. So our kind of mission really is to drive the economy of the town and make it look good, make people want to come and stay in it. And one of the first things we did was we kind of developed these little banners, shop local, and we put them around the town. And then in every shop in the town, they have these little stickers which say love our town, and just to kind of put a bit of positivity into the town. So this is our Loch Mucknow. The next year then we launched the first ever town voucher schemes. So I'm sure a number of people in the room probably are from small towns as well and have done this. And we hadn't done it before, and 98% of the businesses joined in. Like most places, there's probably one person that just won't join in, but you have to get over that, don't you? So there was over 60 shops actually, and petrol stations, and you name it, they all joined in. And since that started, it's actually brought in over 250,000 into the town. So if the average wage is 25,000, we've effectively maintained 10 jobs in the town. The next thing we did was we had our first ever Black Friday promotion. So, it's a standard thing now, but we had never done this. And now we do this yearly, but it's not necessarily Black Friday. We might have a competition, we might have a draw, just different things every year to drive the money into the town. And the business of premises really, they engage with all that, and we do their social marketing for them. And the next thing that year we did was the Christmas lights. So the first year we had Big Tom turned on the lights. The next year we had Margot, we had Eamon Toad. So different people, great fun, really lovely kind of community atmosphere. And we've done that every year. Even this year we did it, and we did drive-by Santa. And then the other initiative we did was the age-friendly initiative. So I'm sure a few of you are familiar with this. County Monaghan is one of the first age-friendly counties. And Castleblaney played our part by having 22 organisations sign up. And at the moment, we're in the process of doing a welcome back cocooners. So a lot of the different premises are trying to welcome back people through COVID who haven't been out and about, to try to encourage them back into the shops and around the community. So we also did welcome signage and general street signage. So again, when you come into Castleblaney, this is a massive big wall with maybe 20, 30 foot, just at the roundabout, and showing all the different things that happen in the town. And then on all the approach roads, we kind of had some lovely pictures of the town, different parts of the town, again, to welcome people in and to create a first good impression. 2017, then we got REDS funding, which is the Rural Economic Development Zone funding, and we painted some key buildings. So some of the more historic buildings here and kind of heritage colours in the town to make the town look nice. And we also managed to get some training of the retailers. So we had a retail expert come down. He met with different people. He gave them different ideas individually. And also we did social media training because, some of the smaller shops, they weren't savvy with that sort of stuff. So to help each other out, we organised this training. We also invited Mary Kennedy down from Nationwide, And as we know, everybody watches Nationwide and everybody loves Mary Kennedy. So we had a great day with her, and she went out and did Big Tom, met the family, and then kind of went round the town. And then we also entered the Bank of Ireland Enterprising Town competition. So what that involved for us was to get all the different businesses in the town together in the one room. We had an application form to fill out. We had a presentation to do. And you went and met a lot of the different businesses. And we were delighted to win an award of highly recommended. So that was a good positive year for us. In 2008, then we unveiled the Big Tom statue. So this is the main man himself. This is his son, Big Tom Jr. As you can see, there's a great likeness. And I'm sure you all recognize this young gentleman here. So this happened in October, and we had 4,000 people in the town. So every B&B, every hotel, every restaurant, every pub was packed. And we made it last the whole weekend. And we also had a music wall of fame, which I'll show you. And we did a big promotion that year on social media and town vouchers. So I suppose in the background, we're always trying to see, is there something new we can do? Is there some way to drive a bit of activity and a bit of positivity around the town? So this is our music wall of fame. So all the different artists, Anna McGoldrick, different people over the years that would have been associated with music. And then in 2019, we launched another wall. So we're mad about our walls in Monaghan. So this was the Paddy Cole mural, so famous jazz singer, and it's actually directly opposite his own house. So that was back to Castleblaney Festival that year. But we were also selected as one of 6 towns for the Venice Biennale competition. So this was a group of architects who looked at different market houses around 6 towns in Ireland, and they showcased it in the Gate Lodge. And we've been working very closely with them. They did a public audit, and they've now come up with funding. And please God, we'll hopefully turn the market house, which is in dereliction, into a really fantastic community space. And like that, what Randy was saying was we asked people what they thought should go into it. Because there's loads of really good ideas in the town, and we want to engage people in it and hopefully empower them to get involved in it. So please God, in a year or two's time, that project will be come to fruition. We also had a bit of a national spotlight at Castleblaney. We were selected as one of 6 towns for the Pilot Towns for Living initiative. So basically, there were 6 towns across the county, some in Mayo and in Kilkenny and Waterford, 6 different towns. And we were all given suggestions for how we could try to improve people, their experience of living in the town. As we all know, there's a homelessness crisis in the country. Yet in every town in Ireland, there's houses that are empty and there's houses that are derelict. So there were some really interesting initiatives that came out of that. And we were asked to present at the Oireachtas about what we found. And then finally, we held a meeting with 40 different businesses to kind of review what was going well, what did they see. And a bit like what Randy was talking about, we got them into groups, facilitators, got people to go around with their sticky notes, something that hadn't really happened in the town before. And we came out with a good list of different projects that they would like us to work on. And then last year, we unveiled the Nudie Hughes Wall Memorial. So Nudie is a great footballer. He's won 3 All-Irelands. And he's great crack. So we had a great day, even though it was COVID, we had to keep it COVID friendly. So this is our wall that we unveiled then. And we also did a lot of social media. And one of the retailers in the town had an Instagram page, and she set it up for everybody. And now there's loads of people on Instagram because it's a younger generation. So now we've really, created a bit of interest with the younger people. We also invited RT61 News down, and they did a little promotion on the reopening of shops. And we have a video promotion of the town. And so lots of different, little clips about tourism and shop and local and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm sure with your own towns, with COVID, everybody, the good thing about COVID was everybody stayed local. So, the shops were doing really well. So there was a big push on shop local and the town vouchers. And then this is our latest wall. So we have a famous photographer who took a picture at this spot in 1901, and his photographs are actually held in the National Library, a man called J.J. Clark. So this was unveiled about a month ago. And again, it adds a bit of colour and variety to the town. We have a number of different video promotions as well. And then we have a new tourism map, which I'll just show you. So it's a very visual sort of map. and I'm such a sado that I have mine framed and put in the loo downstairs. So it's we literally started off, when people come to the town, they don't know all these different things where they go. So we're going to have these populated around the town. Monaghan is not on the tourist list, unfortunately, but we're hoping to change that and to give people a reason to come to Castleblaney, because you have the lake, you have Concord Golf Club, we have a fabulous theatre, etc., etc. So, you know, in chatting to Caroline and to Susan, one of the things that, you know, we're talking about here is planning for the future. And, you know, it'd be interesting to find out, I'm sure the people in the room who are involved in community are probably like myself. My parents were involved in community, which means you sort of do it without even knowing you're doing it. And all my brothers and sisters are stuck in the town doing something or other. But the challenge is to really get the younger people involved so that when we pop our clogs, that it doesn't all finish with us. So, you know, it's one of the things that we are very conscious of, to try to get a younger team in with their volunteers. So we decided to do a community audit, and this was led from another lady. So I'm only part of the committee of this here. And really what we were trying to do is to find out, what do people want? You know, there's 2 new housing estates in the town. That's going to bring probably 80 houses. Multiply that by 4, there's going to be hundreds more people in the town. So what, you know, the town is going to change over the next while. So how do we kind of plan ahead for that? So the community audit is the thing that we decided to do. So it was driven by a need to identify projects to enhance the town. So what do people want? Do they want more cycleways? Do they want a skateboard park? Do they want more activities on the lake? Do they want more bins? You know, what is it that they want? So a new committee was set up with 20 members from other volunteer committees. So it's, you know, it's a new team, which is great because it's not us again. The subcommittees then were set up with specific tasks. So some people, their only job was to develop the survey. In fact, there was a retired DCU lecturer, and he actually took on board a lot of those sort of things. Somebody else is going to analyze all the data when it comes in. Other people then said, look, I'll talk to the international group. I'll talk to, you know, the bogs or whatever it was, so that, you know, to keep the whole thing going. And in total, actually, and I was very surprised at this number, there was 72 volunteer groups in the town of Castleblaney. Like, that's mental, but I'm sure if you count up in your own, it's probably something similar. So we put it on SurveyMonkey and we let it go. We give it 21 days, so we didn't want to drag it out too long. Am I doing for time? Am I okay? Yeah. So we created 43 questions online. So we covered things like healthy and well-being Castleblaney. You know, what do you want to see? What would make your mental health better? What would make your physical health better? Things like that. Inclusive Castleblaney. How do we get the older people involved? How do we get the younger people involved? How do we get new communities into the town involved? What would you like to see around Loch Mucknow? You know, is the water quality important to you? All this kind of stuff. What's missing in the town? What makes you go to a different town? So all these kind of very general questions. To hear the voice of the older people, we wanted to make sure they were heard. So we left hard copies in the post office and at Mass and different places. We also wanted to attract the teenagers. So these were part of our group that we were looking at. And we actually created a separate survey for them with slightly different questions. With the locals, then the things we did there was we promoted using social media, local newspaper, posters, radio interviews, direct messaging. Obviously, we've all any amount of WhatsApp groups. So send it to family and friends, saying, will you fill this in? It'll take 10 minutes. And then it was important for us to involve the local organisations who engage with foreign nationals. 24% of our town centre is foreign nationals, and 13% of the overall electrical division are foreign nationals. So at one of the meetings that we had a guy from India, a guy from Africa, and a lady from Lithuania. So they said they'll all get their own communities, and we actually translated the survey into a number of different languages to facilitate that. So far, we've 428 responses and 52 teenagers. But as you can see here, we won't go through it all, but the problem that we have here is we've only 6 people out of the 428 that were older. So we really feel that we haven't really had the full representation of the older people there. So, you know, when we give out the hard copies, we didn't always get them back. So and we have obviously a lot of people in this area here, which is great, but not so much here and not so much here. So although we have 10% of the overall urban and rural population, we could probably do a little bit better if we could. And what we found was that some people actually who filled in the survey weren't from the town at all. So now what we need to do is to review the response rate and the profile before deciding whether we want to promote it or not. So we probably are at the stage now where we're kind of saying, look, we need to get more older people's views, because I know my own mother, she filled hers in, but I did it on the phone with her. But she had some really good points about there could be more chairs and more seats and, you know, things that I wouldn't have thought of. So we really want to try to be as inclusive as possible. So this is the stage we're at now, is just trying to decide now, you know, will we go ahead for another week or two, or will we actually target the people who we feel are sort of missing in it? So once we get the audit or the results back in, it's going to be publicly available so anybody can see it. And the idea behind that is any individual or group or organisation who sees a need for a project that has been identified can then go and get funding applications. Because part of the problem we had was maybe 2 or 3 groups were going for funding for a project, not knowing somebody else was going as well for the same. So you're diluting the message. So at least if we can identify 3 or 4 key projects, we can then say, well, can you look after that one? Can you go for this one? We'll go for this one. So that would bring everybody together. And, you know, we talked about collaboration before. So this has been a really positive thing for the town, because, you know, people are saying, oh God, there's something good going on. And I suppose I'd like to think that some of the work that we've done has created a visual sort of improvement in the town. We want to keep that going.
Anne-Marie, I'm going to just have to ask you to wrap up within about the next 30 seconds, if that's okay, please.
I'll do. This is my last slide. So, so to summarise, we're passionate about our town, the same as everybody, I'm sure, that's on this webinar. We're very happy to help anybody who's any questions. And if you want to come and visit, I'll personally take you around all the different sites and show you anything that you may be interested in. And if anybody has any questions, that's our email. You can drop me an email, or if you have any questions now, I'll be happy to take them. So thank you very much, Susan.
Well, Big Tom may have done an awful lot for the town, but I'd say you're right up there with them. Now, truly, you couldn't ask for a better ambassador of anywhere. Anne-Marie, that was brilliant, really brilliant. And point has come in here through the Q&A to say a lot of creativity evident in the town, and lots of conversation over here on Twitter as well. One comment is, great regeneration work in Castleblaney, showing lots of initiatives built together for real progress. Thanks, Anne-Marie McHugh. So thank you very, very much indeed for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you indeed. And I'm now going to hand you right over to Elaine Donoghue.
Thank you, Susan. Look, I'm just going to share quickly. Hopefully you can all see. Is there something popping up there at the minute?
Yeah, it just says, now, there you go. If you just want to press the button, yeah, to go full screen. Off you go. That's brilliant, Elaine.
Super, that's great. Look, I'm going to be as quick as I possibly can. I'm going to try limit myself to 10 minutes. So look, my name is Elaine Donoghue. I'm delighted to be here today just to introduce a project that's happening in Athenry in County Galway, and take you through, I suppose, how it's come about. Just a background, I suppose, to Galway and the entire west of Ireland. The region got an award back in it was awarded in 2016, and the celebration took place in 2018 for food. It was a European award for food, a European region gastronomy. And back then, I suppose, it was on the back of actually Galway 2020. Food just kept popping up everywhere as part of our culture. This award was kind of sought to justify, I suppose, just the amount of activity that was happening in food and the bubbling that was happening, I suppose, across the whole region. So 2018 was a fabulous year. It was just very much about growing awareness locally of the population on food and the importance to the background of I suppose, the fabric of the west of Ireland mostly, and how critical it was from, you know, the agricultural industry right through to the restaurants and hospitality industry that we have today, that is really modern and diverse. So that year happened in 2018, very successful, a lot of really strong outcomes. But I suppose what also was identified at the time is, okay, what's going to be the legacy of this? So, you know, we've had this European Award for food, lots of great things happened. We've also identified as part of that process a lot of gaps, a lot of issues for the food industry, both at farm level, food producers, chefs, the hospitality industry, just the general public, who obviously, you know, I mean, if you think about it, everyone has a connection with food. We all eat 3 times a day at least, if not more in some of our cases. And food is a way of communicating across all nationalities and cultures. You don't need language sometimes if you're sharing food or whatever. So it was seen as just a very important area that we needed to invest in for the future, and something that was critical to the cultural and the sustainability sustainability of the region. So look, this is how Be Innovator came about. It became a legacy project from that European award, and very much addressing key gaps that emerged by, I suppose, working with the grassroots community over that period of time in 2017, 2018, 2019. So look, the campus, I'm going to take you through what it is and all the different aspects of it, but I suppose the main point for today is it is a social enterprise, a not-for-profit company limited by guarantee, and we've put together a high-profile voluntary board of directors that will obviously evolve over time, but at the minute the board is very much targeted at, you know, setting up a real excellent company structure and ways of operating, its governance, expertise in finance to help us, you know, get this off the ground and, you know, sustain it. You know, we've expertise from the construction aspect, contractual elements. So the board really reflects kind of a multi-agency approach, but also all the different areas that we need to plug in to have a successful facility. So another word that I'll mention here is a quadruple helix. So we're very keen that everything we do has, you know, public stakeholders, private and industry stakeholders, the education, and obviously the community feeding in, so that it's very much the right type of cluster for the future. So since 2017, we set up the company that year. We've raised over €7 million to create this campus infrastructure that will transform the food sector in the west of Ireland as a whole. And we're only really just beginning. We're hoping to open our doors at the end of the year. And that is really when our journey will truly kick off. But just to give you an idea of the founders, and some of these are members on the board as well, so Galway County Council, very interested in community, rural and economic development, growing jobs in rural areas and sustaining rural communities. Teagasc, they're the Agriculture and Food Development Authority. They deal with the farming community and obviously supporting them through their local offices, but also they have food and industry development team in Dublin, Cork, focused around dairy, and Athenry is another site of theirs. The Goiras Common Education and Training Board do an awful lot of the educational training up to meet with, we'll say, GMIT and NUIG then in further education. The local enterprise office, they deal with the food community on a day-to-day basis and their needs, supporting them. Skull is a business in Galway. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but they're also a best-in-class social enterprise, and they've come on board to, I suppose, help us understand how to set up and how to run a really good social enterprise, how to engage with the community. The Western Development Commission, obviously they deal with development of the whole Western Seaboard. And then Athenry Community Council are a local community group as well that are looking at the development of Athenry at a local scale. So we have partners on board that are local, county, regional and national across the food industry. And then again, as I said, across the quadruple helix. So look, just to give you an idea of the need and where we fit in, when you look at food campuses, and we are a food innovation campus, so we're trying to stem added value in the food sector. So this is just a map of Ireland, and all the dots that you see are different types of food facilities. Might be a small little kitchen, might be an actual food hub where you can rent a unit. There's lots of different types, but as you can see in the northwest, there's just nothing available for the industry at all. Number 7 up there in the kind of dark navy, that's Drumshanbo and Leitrim, which should be quite well known. But again, look at the distance from Athenry. So while we don't pass any remarks of distance in Ireland, you know, it's still a large gap for the northwest and not a huge amount of facilities there. You know, when you think about food in Ireland and areas that have really progressed, you see Cork has done very, very well in its development. Look at all the dots that they have by comparison. So definitely there was a huge need for support to the food industry, and I suppose things that we identified from engaging with the community, the food community at large, was very much that you know, they were hopping and jumping from agency to agency, looking for support, and often didn't know where to go, who to contact. Sometimes ended up talking to the wrong person, not getting the knowledge they needed. So the idea behind Be Innovator is to give them everything they need on one site, and just a wealth of knowledge, a one-stop shop. We'll also have a food technology team to help them. So whether you're a farmer, a chef with an idea, or a food producer, we have a technology team that will help you do a label for your jam, help you to set your yogurt, whatever your issue might be, that support is there. And then obviously Teagasc have come on board as a partner, so their wider expertise nationally we can link in. So if someone needs help with packaging or need a dairy expert to help them out on something, you know, we're able to tap into them very quickly and not waste time. So look, definitely the West is underserved by food production facility and services. The local enterprise offices do a huge amount to support, but sometimes wouldn't have the expertise in food. They definitely would have a number of different mentors in that, but we plan to help them expand their services. And definitely we carried out then a feasibility study to justify the need. And this is again, public, private, community and educational, getting everyone's responses to what was needed for the West of Ireland. Also in the West, there's a huge deficit of courses. So there wouldn't even be, we'll say, an agricultural science course in Galway. Very strong on the culinary side of things with GMIT, but you know, lots of different gaps that we need to focus on and grow. But again, we need to do this on a regional basis, not just Galway. So this is our campus that's under construction at the minute. The cladding is almost up, and the buildings are just about closed in. We're hoping to open by the end of the year, and this is kind of the format. So it's on, Teagasc have given us the site for this development, and down at the back is kind of a Department of Agriculture building. Galway Rural Development are also on site in Mayo. So there's 3 buildings. So the first one is our Bia Olis, so it's a learning and development centre. We'll also have a lot of food tourism education in here as well, how to build a food tourism business and how to accelerate your business and grow it. So all types of business supports and a business engagement zone. So this is also going to be a networking hub where people can come and meet and gather as the food community and get to know each other, learn from each other as well. So it won't just be formal courses, it'll be meetups and lunchtime events and evening events. At the back of that then we have this long low building, and that is co-working space. So you'd see a lot of this in the US. There isn't a huge amount of the space in Ireland at the minute. There is some, but again, you can come in here into this space and you can rent a kitchen for a day, maybe the dairy kitchen, make ice cream, make yogurt. All the equipment is there. You don't have to, you know, invest in equipment or invest in a food production facility, which is very expensive. You can just come and use ours, and you know, it de-risks an early stage business. So, you know, if you're on the Wild Atlantic Way and you want to start a business, but you know, you haven't got the funds to spend 100,000 on a food production unit, we're de-risking that for you. You can come, get our expertise, you know, use our facilities at a very accessible rate and get on with growing your business. And then when you have grown out of that and you're producing more regularly, you've got some customers built up, you can get your own starter unit. You see there at the back. So there's 9 of them. So people that you might see at the minute that produce in their garage or they produce in their kitchen at home and it's HSE registered and they want to move on to the next stage, want to become more professional, want to have neighbours, want to learn. They can have a starter unit. It's like a big kitchen. You could have about 8 staff working there. So it helps you to grow. You just rent, you don't have to invest. You pay your rent, it's very accessible, and it's to the highest standards that you require if you're going to be dealing with someone like SuperValu or Centra. And then at the back then we have 3 larger growth units. So these are people that can grow, we'll say, from that 8 staff up to about 25. So just to give you an example of the West of Ireland, like, you know, 3 of the biggest companies would be maybe Galmere Foods, Lucknan Sausages and Foods of Athenry. The Foods of Athenry would have about, I think, 19 to 20 staff at the minute. So you can really do a lot of your growth journey with us without having to invest a lot of money, and it just helps because businesses fail at the first couple of years, and it's a lot of the reason they fail is because they don't have the right facilities or the right support. So we're going to provide all that, and then when you have your 25 staff, then you can go off to Bullon or Kilkee or wherever you are in the region and develop your business locally and your employees locally there. So we're very much just helping you get off the ground. So again, I kind of took you through who'll benefit from this. It's everyone from a farmer who wants to maybe make butter, wants to do tours of his farm, wants to add value to his product, wants to get a better price for his beef, wants to sell it directly on a farm shop, right through to someone who is an existing business or has a cafe or restaurant and wants to just look at new ways of improving their business or getting new revenue streams. So it's for the food community. And again, we're linking in all the educational providers as well. So it's farm to fork and across the quadruple helix. And again, one of the key aspects here is the access to the knowledge. So someone who actually knows what they're talking about in the food industry, whether that's, you know, the business side, the marketing, telling your story, the technical services, whatever it might be. So again, you'll join a community, you can upskill yourself and your team, and you can get expert advice when you're stuck. So we're unsticking anyone along the food chain. This is the idea of the production. So the co-working kitchen's just done on a kind of a little cartoon. So you pay as you use. We've put in all the lovely appliances, all commercial grade, and they're dedicated. So there's one unit for meat, for kind of butchery, one that's general. You can do everything from cakes to jams to chocolate to whatever you want. Dairy then is very specific: cheese, yogurts, ice cream, any of that kind of thing. Kefir drinks are really on trend at the minute. And we have a seafood unit then, because the seafood industry really needs to start adding more value as well. And then you'll see the starter units where you have your own contract and your own door and your own key. And then this, in our learning and development centre, these are just some of the rooms. I suppose, again, it's just to give a more professional stance to the offering. So this is a buyer showcase room, very much bring in your customer, bring in SuperValu, bring in McCambridge's, Ardkeen stores, do a presentation for them, cook up your sausages, let them sample them, and hopefully negotiate a contract in a professional space. So they're not coming into your kitchen at home or into your garage or into some unprofessional space. You can now have access very accessibly to these professional spaces with all the audiovisual that you require. Now this room can also double as a seasonal shop, so we can maybe get involved in things like neighbourhood food, or it's all about the flexibility. We also have a 60-seater auditorium where 2 chefs can cook at the one time. We can stream this live, we can record, so you'll see a lot of people doing meal kits and pizza kits that are being shipped all over the country. They can film their videos, and we can hold lectures here, you know, all sorts of courses, whatever we need. It's very flexible. We have an audio visual room next door then. It has a 9-screen wall. Again, this can be used for serving lunch. It can be used for food networks to gather. It can be used for training of staff, for food producers or restaurant owners. It's all fully flexible for whatever the requirement are. And then upstairs we have a 16-station culinary training room. So I don't know if you'd be aware or not, but there's a huge shortage of chefs in the industry. So again, developing the chefs that are there, and bringing more people in from, we'll say, even transition year or from school level to understand what life might be like, or to get an interest in food, to grow that. We can do that here, and all the added courses. And then we also have a business centre with hot desks and a coffee bar where we'll run kind of lunchtime events, and I suppose create a place for the food industry to come and gather, spend a day, get away from your day-to-day and just do something different. So this is just some images. We've got different breakout booths and phone booths and things. So it's really a professional space for the food industry. So anyone can walk in here, from a chef, cafe owner, food producer, farmer, and use our spaces or engage with us. And it's built for the community. This is just a diagram to kind of show you what kind of one of our production spaces is like, that's fully kitted out. We have everything and anything. So we'll show people how to produce professionally and how to get going. So I suppose this is very much built off a community need that has been evolving over time, and just a whole industry that has, I won't say been on its knees, but it's had every struggle under the sun, particularly with COVID. So hospitality has been closed. Food producers have lost maybe all the cafes that had nice little dressers to stock local produce, and they've had to sell online. They've had, I suppose, a huge amount of challenges, even the farming community. And there is a shift definitely where people are interested in sourcing more local food and knowing where it comes from. But if our food producers and our food community can't have a space where they're supported and be enabled to add value, then I suppose they're never going to progress into the modern 21st century. They're going to be left behind. So we want to support the West of Ireland through this facility. So all our services are charged for, but really accessible, and half the market rate. So for example, a food technologist, if you went out into the market at the minute, you'd probably pay €600 a day. You probably get access to our food technologists for around 300. So it's very much about us putting this infrastructure in place and supporting the industry. Nothing is free, but it's we're trying to offer industry relevant and at a very accessible price. So I hope that gives insight, and any questions, happy to take them.
Absolutely, Elaine. And also, I've just seen comments come in here to say this is so exciting to have it in the West of Ireland, has been a comment that's come in. And again, on #resilience renewal, you'll also see the conversation that's happening over there. So it's at this stage that I am going to take you on. Actually, sorry, someone has just put up a question there. Will Elaine put up her details again? So Elaine, you might just share those also in the Q&A. And I also want to mention, Everything today has been recorded. Some of you have been asking for some of Randy's slides and a couple of other points. It's all being recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. So to take you on a super quick summary of all of the things that have happened today, we started off by introducing Shay Reardon from West Limerick Resources. He's going to come back to you now to bring this to a close. We heard about 30 different social enterprises all over Limerick and Tipperary and Mayo as well. They were talking about covering arts, housing, agriculture, tourism, family care, community activities, education, and so much more. Then we heard from Lismore Heritage Centre, who are focusing in on education and history, St. Declan's Way, etc. We heard from Southmead, who provide a home and garden service that really is a greater befriending service. And we had Rosslare, the community centre there, sports and community centre, who have two different types of markets really. They've got the tourism side and then they've got the local community. And then we had Christy from Donegal, who then spoke to us about White Oaks, who offer opportunities to groups for retreats, for nature, and also for spiritual revival. Then we had Randy, and a couple of things that stood out for me from Randy's conversation. He said 70% of CEOs say that innovation must be in strategy. He said 9 out of 10 say customer experience is a prime competitive issue. And then he went on to describe that a design thinking is a deep understanding of normally unarticulated needs and desires. And he particularly then spoke about what is, what if, what wows, and what works. And he spoke about taking the chance of being wrong. Very important point he made as well about allowing everybody to share their insights on post-it notes and so on. And a tool that I use for that as well is called Klaxoon. Then we had Anne-Marie, and she told us about the town voucher schemes that 98% of businesses bought into, which then delivered 250,000 for the town. She spoke about age-friendly initiatives, loads of walls and loads of celebs from Castleblaney, and also the video promotion of Instagram, and she told us about her community audit. And then finally we had Elaine, who spoke about the European Award for Food, but questioned what would be the legacy. So she spoke about key gaps that emerged from the grassroots and the quadruple helix. She mentioned that a lot: private sector, public sector, education, and the community. She also spoke about sustaining rural jobs, and she showed us the map there of where different food opportunities are and how far away they are from Athenry. So to offer this in Galway, where nothing is for free, but it is at much more accessible rates than typically would be in the market. She spoke about the two reasons people fail, or businesses fail, is because they don't have access to the facilities, and also that they can't get to quality standard fast enough for the bigger suppliers. She said specifically that the campus is for unsticking the sticking points. So on that note, I'll give you back to Shay. I want to say a huge thank you to Caroline Egan for all of her organisation today. Big shout out to BE Studios in Cork. They are the A team, no doubt about it. And also thank you to the 3 organisations spearheaded by West Limerick Resources. Shay, back to you, and thank you for a wonderful morning.
Susan, thank you so much. And I have to say, it's been really, really interesting 2 hours, and I hope everybody has got some benefit. I've no doubt you have. I think it falls to me to say a few thank yous and just a few comments on the proceedings this morning. Susan, thank you so much for your stewardship and keeping us all in time. Thank you so much for that. Caroline Egan and her team, who are leading out on the contract for this cooperation project with the 30 social enterprises that are being directly supported through ourselves in West Limerick Resources, South Tipperary Development Company, and South West Mayo Local Development Company. To Katie, Narita, and Sarah, they're the stewards that are keeping all of this going and have brought the whole proposal together. So I just want to acknowledge their input on this. To Randy and his input this morning on the design thinking, I think for all of us, we're probably seeing that happening at local level in those successful projects without realizing it. But there is a scientific theory, and that's, I suppose, what we want to draw on and bring that expertise in to further assist our social enterprises and our local community groups that we're working with. I suppose, of particular note, and I'm not going to single out anyone, but for all the community groups and volunteers that have given the time this morning, and for those that have participated, this is really a showcase of what can be achieved at local community level. Communities know best what their needs are, where the gaps are, and how best to respond to those gaps. And it's our mantra and our philosophy that we're committed to the community. And that's what this initiative is about. It's about supporting those communities to develop their ideas and their responses to meet the needs at local level. So through this initiative, that's what we're trying to do. We hope that everybody has got benefit out of this morning, and it's I suppose, the taster of what's to come in terms of those that are directly engaging with us. And for any further community groups or organisations that perhaps want to learn more, either directly to ourselves as 3 local development companies or any of our partners, there's a local development company covering the entire of the country. So there is a local contact point. And I suppose to wrap up, the right idea will always get support. And sometimes government gets a lot of slack for maybe not providing supports and inputs. But I think throughout all the projects this morning, there has been a level or a sense of support coming from different quarters. It's about knowing how best to tap it and to get your proposals right. And that's what we're here to support you in doing. So on that note, really look forward to working with everybody over the rest of this program. And thank you so much for joining us this morning.